Dr. Kelthera adjusted her scanning equipment for the third time that morning. The blue light from her data pad cast strange shadows across her purple-scaled face as she worked in the observation deck of the research vessel Infinite Query. Outside, the massive viewing window, a small yellow star burned quietly in the darkness of space. Around it, several planets moved in their ancient dance. Just another routine survey, she muttered to herself. Though something felt different about this system. The Galactic Council had been mapping star systems in this spiral arm for decades, cataloging worlds and marking them for future study. This particular system, designated Sol by its inhabitants, contained 9 planets. The third one had caught their attention. Sol 3 was alive, not just alive, but buzzing with activity. Billions of creatures moved across its surface, built structures, and sent signals into space. The species called themselves humans, though they had many other names for themselves depending on which part of their world they came from. To the Council, they were simply another developing species, perhaps a century or two away from joining galactic civilization. Kelthera's job was simple: study their languages, understand their culture, and prepare a report for the Council. It should have been easy work. She had done this dozens of times before with other worlds. But as she fed human languages into her translation systems, strange things began to happen. The first warning came from her linguistic analysis computer. A soft chime indicated an anomaly in the data. Kelthera frowned and pulled up the results on her screen. The computer had been analyzing what humans called English, one of their more common languages. Everything seemed normal until she reached the word they used for their planet. Earth, she said aloud, testing the pronunciation. It was a simple word meaning dirt or soil in their language. Most species named their homeworlds after concepts of beauty, power, or religious significance. But humans had named theirs after the ground beneath their feet. The computer chimed again. This time it was analyzing a language called Mandarin. The humans had hundreds of languages, each with its own word for their world. But as Kelthera watched, pattern recognition software began highlighting similarities. Despite the vast differences in human languages, they all seemed to share common roots for certain concepts, and many of them had ancient words that translated to ground, soil, or earth. Interesting, Kelthera murmured. She instructed the computer to run a deeper analysis, cross-referencing human linguistic patterns with the Council's vast database of known civilizations. The results took several hours to process. When they finally appeared on her screen, Kelthera felt a chill run down her spine that had nothing to do with the ship's climate controls. The computer had found matches, not just a few scattered similarities, but dozens of connections between human languages and civilizations that had existed millions of years ago, species that had vanished long before the current Council had even formed. The linguistic pattern suggested contact, influence, or something even more unsettling. Kelthera leaned back in her chair and stared at the data. According to the computer, human languages contained traces of at least 17 different extinct civilizations. That was impossible. Those civilizations had died out eons ago, long before humans had even developed basic tools, let alone space travel. She ran the analysis, again certain there had been a mistake. The results were the same. Computer, show me the classification level for these extinct civilizations, she commanded. The screen flickered and red text appeared. Classified, Council authorization. Required. Kelthera's hearts began beating faster. In 20 years of xenoarchaeological work, she had never encountered classified information about extinct species. The Council was usually eager to share knowledge about dead civilizations. They posed no threat and often provided valuable scientific insights. She stared out the window at Sol 3, watching clouds swirl across its blue surface. What secrets did this little world hold? Using her research credentials, Kelthera submitted a formal request to access the classified files. To her surprise, the approval came back within hours. Either the Council was very interested in her work, or they had been expecting someone to ask these questions. The files that downloaded to her system were massive, terabytes of data spanning millions of years. But it was what she found in the first few documents that made her blood run cold. The earliest entry was from a species called the Veshti, who had ruled a small empire near the galactic core over 3 million years ago. Their final transmission, recorded just before their civilization vanished, contained a single line that made Kelthera's hands shake. The world of soil and stone has spawned something we do not understand. We go to investigate. If we do not return, let this serve as warning. Do not wake the sleeping giants of the third planet. Kelthera scrolled through more entries. The Kalhari Empire, gone for 2 million years, had left similar warnings. The Synthetic Collective, the first human diaspora. Wait, first human diaspora? That couldn't be right. According to all council records, humans had never left their homeworld before. She opened the file with trembling fingers. The document was ancient, its data format barely compatible with modern systems. But the translation was clear. Species. Designation, human. Origin, Sol 3, designated Earth by natives. Status, extreme caution advised. These beings appear primitive by technological standards but display unprecedented adaptability and survival instincts. Initial contact protocols failed when human subjects demonstrated ability to learn our language. In days, master our technology in weeks, and exceed our physical capabilities within months of exposure to enhanced gravity and atmospheric conditions. Recommendation: avoid contact. These creatures do not simply survive adverse conditions, they thrive in them. The entry was signed by the hegemony of Keth, a civilization so ancient that most modern species considered them mythical. Kelthera spent the rest of the day reading through the files. Each extinct civilization had encountered humans at some point in their history. Not all of them had made direct contact, but they had all studied Earth from a distance, and they had all reached the same terrifying conclusion. Humans were not a normal species. They had evolved on a world that should have killed them 1,000,000 times over. Ice ages that froze continents solid. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for years. Asteroid impacts that wiped out most other life forms. Disease plagues that should have eliminated their species entirely, but humans had survived it all. More than survived, they had grown stronger. The files described human capabilities that seemed impossible. They could adapt to almost any environment within a single generation. They formed social bonds across genetic lines, creating cooperative groups that could tackle challenges no individual could face. They took deadly toxins and turned them into medicines. They looked at insurmountable obstacles and treated them as puzzles to be solved. Most disturbing of all, they never seemed to give up. Other species, when faced with extinction, would accept their fate with dignity. Humans would keep fighting until their last breath, and somehow, impossibly, they would find a way to survive. As night fell on her ship, Kelthera sat in her darkened lab, staring at Earth through the viewport. The planet looked so peaceful from space. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents, it was beautiful. But now she knew the truth. Earth wasn't just a planet, it was a forge. For 4 billion years it had been hammering and shaping the creatures that lived on its surface, killing the weak and strengthening the survivors, and humanity was what it had finally produced, the ultimate survivors. Kelthera reached for her communication console. The council needed to know what they were really dealing with, but as her finger hovered over the transmit button, she hesitated. What would happen when the galaxy learned the truth about the peaceful little world in the Orion Arm? What would happen when they discovered Earth's real name? Kelthera had not slept in 2 days. Her research station was covered in datapads, holographic displays, and empty food containers. The classified files about human contact had opened a door she could not close. Each new piece of information led to 10 more questions, and every answer was more disturbing than the last. The Council's central archives contained layers of security that most researchers never encountered. But Kelthera's growing list of search terms had triggered something deep in the system's memory banks. Ancient protocols that had been dormant for millennia were suddenly activating. Computer, show me all references to planetary designation Earth in pre-Council archives, she commanded. The response came back immediately. Warning. Search parameters have activated emergency protocols. Council oversight notified. Kelthera paused. Emergency protocols? She had simply been doing research. What could be so dangerous about studying human history? Her communication panel beeped with an incoming message. The transmission bore the official seal of the Council's Department of Xenoarchaeological Studies. Her supervisor, Director Vexthan, appeared on her screen looking concerned. Dr. Kelthera, we need to discuss your recent research requests. Report to Council Station Alpha immediately. The transmission ended abruptly. Kelthera stared at the blank screen, her stomach churning. In 20 years of research, she had never been summoned to the main Council Station. She gathered her data and prepared for the journey, but something told her she would not be returning to the Infinite Query anytime soon. Council Station Alpha was a massive structure that housed the government of 47 different species. As Kelthera's shuttle approached the docking bay, she could see ships from across the galaxy converging on the station. Something big was happening. Director Vexthan met her at the airlock. His usually calm demeanor was replaced by barely controlled anxiety. Kelthera, what exactly have you been researching in the Sol system? Standard linguistic and cultural analysis, she replied carefully. Though I did encounter some unusual, historical references that required accessing classified materials. Vexthan's tentacles twitched nervously. Unusual how? Kelthera hesitated. How could she explain what she had discovered without sounding insane? Director, I believe previous civilizations may have had contact with humans long before our current records indicate. The linguistic evidence suggests— Stop, Vexthan interrupted. Don't say another word. We're going directly to the archive chamber. There are people who need to hear this. The archive chamber was located in the deepest part of Council Station, Alpha. Kelthera had heard rumors about it but never imagined she would see it herself. The chamber housed the Council's most ancient and dangerous knowledge, information that was deemed too sensitive for general access. As they descended through layers of security checkpoints, Kelthera noticed they were not alone. Representatives from several major species were making the same journey. She recognized the distinctive breathing apparatus of a hegemony admiral, the crystal formations of a silicon collective drone, and the flowing robes of an eternal conclave. Elder, Director, she whispered. Why are all these people here? Vexthan's voice was grim. Because your research queries triggered automated warnings that haven't been activated in 3 million years. The last time these protocols engaged, an entire sector of the galaxy went dark. The archive chamber was enormous. Holographic displays filled the space from floor to ceiling, showing star charts, historical timelines, and data streams that hurt to look at directly. At the center of the room stood the archive keeper, an ancient artificial intelligence that had served the Council since before most current civilizations had evolved. The archive keeper's voice filled the chamber like distant thunder. Dr. Kelthera, of the Vorthan Republic, you have requested access to information regarding planetary body Sol 3, designation Earth. This information carries the highest classification level. Are you prepared to accept the consequences of this knowledge? Kelthera looked around at the assembled representatives. They were all staring at her with expressions ranging from curiosity to fear. I just want to understand what I've found. The linguistic patterns don't make sense unless previous civilizations had contact with humanity, the archive keeper finished. Your hypothesis is correct. Please observe. The chamber darkened, and the holographic displays shifted to show a timeline stretching back millions of years. Points of light appeared along the timeline, each representing a different civilization. The first recorded contact, the archive keeper announced, occurred 4.2 million years ago when the precursor empire detected unusual radio emissions from Sol 3. These emissions suggested the presence of an intelligent species, despite the planet's hostile environment. Images flashed through the holographic display. Kelthera saw worlds consumed by ice, continents split by volcanic eruptions, and skies darkened by meteor impacts. But in each image, small groups of primitive humans could be seen struggling to survive. The Precursor Empire sent a research vessel to investigate. The archive keeper continued. Their mission was simple: study the developing species and determine if they posed any future threat to galactic stability. New images appeared, showing sleek alien spacecraft approaching Earth. The ships were massive, their technology far beyond anything humans possessed. But what happened next made Kelthera gasp in shock. The research vessel crashed during atmospheric entry due to unexpected electromagnetic storms. The crew survived but found themselves stranded on a hostile world with primitive creatures who should have been easily controlled or eliminated. The holographic display showed the alien crew, tall, graceful beings with advanced weapons and technology, being hunted through dark forests by humans carrying simple spears and stone axes. But it was not a one-sided battle. The humans moved like shadows, struck without warning, and seemed to anticipate every alien tactic. Within 6 months, the surviving crew members reported that the humans had not only learned to use captured, alien technology, but had begun improving upon it. The Precursor rescue mission found a world where primitive hunters were building crude spacecraft from salvaged materials and attempting to follow the aliens back to the stars. Admiral Zixandra of the Hegemony leaned forward. What happened to the Precursor Empire? The archive keeper's response chilled the room. They made a decision that doomed their civilization. Believing they could control humanity through superior technology and numbers, they attempted a full-scale contact operation. They wanted to study human adaptability under laboratory conditions. The holographic display showed massive ships arriving at Earth, cities being built, and humans being transported to different worlds for experimentation. But the images quickly turned dark. The precursors underestimated humanity's most dangerous trait: their ability to form cooperative bonds with other species. Within a generation, humans had not only mastered precursor technology but had convinced significant portions of the precursor population to join them in rebellion against their own government. Kelthera watched in fascination and horror as the timeline showed the precursor empire tearing itself apart in civil war. Humans had somehow infiltrated every level of their society, not through force or deception, but through genuine friendship and alliance building. The war lasted 300 years, the archive keeper explained. It ended when the last precursor worlds chose to abandon their empire and join the human-led coalition. The precursor empire did not fall to conquest, it fell to conversion. The Silicon Collective drone spoke in its electronic voice. Where are they now, these human precursor hybrids? Unknown, the archive keeper replied. They vanished from our sensors approximately 3.8 million years ago. Their final transmission was a single message broadcast to the entire galaxy. We go beyond. Do not follow. Do not disturb our birth world. Let our children grow in peace until they are ready to join the greater community of stars. Silence filled the chamber. Kelthera felt the weight of millions of years of hidden history pressing down on her. How many other civilizations made contact? The timeline expanded, showing dozens of light points converging on Earth throughout history. Each one told a similar story: contact, conflict, and ultimately transformation or disappearance. 43 confirmed contact events, the archive keeper answered. Each civilization believed they could control or eliminate humanity. None succeeded. Some were destroyed in direct conflict. Others, like the precursors, were absorbed into human-led coalitions. A few simply vanished after initial contact, leaving only warnings for future civilizations. The Eternal Conclave Elder spoke in his ancient, wavering voice. The warnings all said the same thing. They call their world Earth, but we learned its true name. It is not a planet. It is a crucible. And it has forged something the galaxy has never seen before. Kelthera looked out at the assembled representatives. In their faces, she saw the dawning realization that was creeping through her own mind. What is Earth's true name? The archive keeper paused before answering, and, when it spoke, its voice carried the weight of cosmic dread, the forge of gods. The revelation spread through Council Station Alpha like wildfire. Within hours of the archive chamber meeting, encrypted messages were racing across the galaxy to every major civilization. Emergency sessions were called, Military advisors were summoned. Ancient defense protocols that had never been tested were suddenly being reviewed and updated. Kelthera found herself confined to a secure quarters while the council debated what to do with the information she had uncovered. Through her window, she could see ships arriving at the station every few minutes. These were not the usual diplomatic vessels. These were warships, their hulls bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Her door chimed, and Admiral Zixandra entered. The hegemony officer's usually perfect uniform looked wrinkled, and her breathing apparatus was cycling faster than normal, a sign of stress in her species. "Dr. Kelthera, I need you to understand the magnitude of what you've discovered," the Admiral said, settling into a chair across from her. "In the past 6 hours, the Council has recalled every fleet in the galaxy. Trade routes have been suspended. 3 different species have requested emergency evacuations of their border colonies." "Why?" Kelthera asked, though she feared she already knew the answer. "The humans seem peaceful. Their transmissions talk about art, music, exploration. They've never shown any aggressive intentions." Admiral Zixandra laughed bitterly. "Peaceful? Dr. Kelthera, have you actually studied their behavior patterns? Their entertainment media is filled with stories about overcoming impossible odds. Their sports involve ritualized combat. Their children play games that simulate warfare and survival scenarios." She activated a holographic display showing Earth's surface. "Look at their planet. Really look at it. Every continent shows evidence of massive environmental disasters. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, meteor impacts, climate shifts that would have ended most civilizations. And yet humans spread across the entire globe. They didn't just survive, they conquered their own world." The display zoomed in on various human settlements. Cities built in deserts where nothing should be able to live. Settlements on frozen mountains where the air was too thin to breathe. Colonies floating on the ocean in areas where storms could sink islands. "They don't just adapt to environments," Admiral Zixandra continued. "They reshape environments to suit their needs. And when they can't reshape them, they reshape themselves. Look at this." New images appeared showing human genetic diversity. Unlike most species, which had relatively similar physical characteristics, humans showed incredible variation. Different skin colors, body shapes, and physiological adaptations all within the same species. This level of genetic diversity should have led to speciation millions of years ago, the Admiral explained. Instead, humans use their differences as strengths. They interbreed freely across all genetic lines, creating hybrid vigor that makes each generation more adaptable than the last. Kelthera studied the images with growing unease. She was beginning to understand why the ancient civilizations had been so afraid. But they're still centuries away from interstellar travel. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. Is it? Admiral Zixandra pulled up technical specifications of human technology. "Look at their advancement curve. 50 years ago, they could barely fly within their own atmosphere. Today, they have permanent stations in orbit and robots exploring other planets in their system. At their current rate of development, they'll have faster-than-light travel within decades." She switched to a different display showing human population growth. "And look at their expansion rate. In just the last century, they've tripled their population while simultaneously improving their technology and exploring their solar system. Most species choose between growth and advancement. Humans do both simultaneously." The door chimed again and Director Vexthon entered along with several other council members. Their expressions were grim. "The emergency session has reached a preliminary decision," Vexthon announced. "The Sol system is to be placed under immediate quarantine. No ships in or out until we can determine how to proceed." Kelthera stood up, quickly. "You can't quarantine an entire star system without cause. The humans have done nothing wrong." "Nothing wrong?" Council member Thyrix of the Crystal Hegemony spoke in harmonic tones that conveyed deep concern. "Dr. Kelthera, we have reviewed your linguistic analysis. Do you know what we found when we examined human languages more closely?" She shook her head. "Combat terminology," Thyrix continued. "The human language with the most speakers, English, contains over 50 different words for conflict and warfare. Their casual conversation is filled with military metaphors. They tackle problems, fight diseases, battle against odds, and conquer challenges. Council member Vorth of the Synthetic Alliance projected statistical data into the room. Furthermore, their historical records show continuous warfare throughout their civilization. They have never experienced a period longer than 23 years without armed conflict somewhere on their planet. That proves they're dangerous, Admiral Zixandra said. A species that treats war as a natural state of existence. No, Kelthera protested. It proves they're survivors. Look at the context of their conflicts. Yes, they fight each other, but they also fight against natural disasters, disease, extinction events. And they win. They don't just fight other humans. They fight against anything that threatens their survival. She moved to the display controls and pulled up historical data about human achievements. Look at their medical advances. They've eliminated diseases that plagued them for millennia. Look at their engineering projects. They've built structures that withstand earthquakes, hurricanes, and floods. They don't just accept harsh conditions, they overcome them. Director Vexthon studied the data with interest. Dr. Kelthera makes a valid point. Perhaps their aggressive tendencies are directed more toward solving problems than creating them. That's what makes them terrifying, Admiral Zixandra countered. They see everything as a problem to be solved, including other civilizations. The archived records show that every species that made contact with humans was ultimately absorbed, destroyed, or transformed. Humans don't just want to survive, they want to improve everything they encounter. Council member Theorix chimed with harmonics of deep concern. The pattern is consistent across all historical contacts. Humans encounter a superior civilization, learn from them, improve upon their knowledge, and then surpass them. They don't just catch up, they advance beyond their teachers. The room fell silent as everyone contemplated the implications. Kelthera looked out the window at Earth, barely visible as a tiny blue dot in the distance. It seemed impossible that such a small world could inspire such fear in the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. There's something else, Director Vexthon said quietly. The archive keeper has been running probability calculations based on the historical data. If current human development continues at its present rate, they will achieve technological parity with the Council within 50 years, full technological superiority within a century. And their population? Admiral Zixandra asked. Conservative estimates suggest 10 billion individuals by the time they achieve interstellar travel. Aggressive expansion models predict 50 billion within 2 centuries of leaving their system. The weight of those numbers settled over the room like a crushing force. 50 billion humans spreading across the galaxy, each one carrying the genetic legacy of 4 billion years of survival training on the galaxy's most hostile training ground. The quarantine must hold, Admiral Zixandra declared. We establish a perimeter around the Sol system and prevent any human vessels from leaving. If they can't reach the stars, they can't threaten galactic stability. And if they try to break the quarantine, Council member Vorth asked. The Admiral's breathing apparatus cycled rapidly. Then we defend the galaxy. Kelthera felt a chill run through her body. She looked out at Earth again, thinking about the billions of humans living their lives, unaware that the galaxy was preparing to cage them like dangerous animals. What if we're wrong? She asked quietly. What if they really are peaceful? What if their survival instincts could be turned toward helping other species instead of conquering them? Admiral Zixandra stood to leave. Dr. Kelthera, in 3 million years of galactic history, 43 civilizations have asked that same question about humanity. Do you know how many of those civilizations still exist? Kelthera shook her head. None. The Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council had never seen such a gathering. Representatives from every known civilization filled the vast chamber, their various breathing apparatus, translation devices, and life support systems creating a symphony of mechanical sounds. At the center of the hall, a massive holographic display showed the Sol system, with Earth highlighted in ominous red. Fleet Admiral Corvash of the United Armadas stood at the central podium, his 4 arms gesturing toward the display as he addressed the assembly. Fellow beings of the galaxy, We face a threat unlike any in recorded history. Not an invasion from outside our galaxy, not a cosmic disaster, but something far more dangerous. A species that has been forged by 4 billion years of continuous survival challenges. Murmurs rippled through the assembly in dozens of different languages and communication methods. In the viewing gallery reserved for researchers and advisors, Kelthera sat with Director Vexthon, watching the debate that would determine humanity's future. The evidence is undeniable, Admiral Korvash continued. Every civilization that has encountered humanity has either been destroyed, absorbed, or fundamentally changed. We cannot allow this pattern to continue. Representative Thelara of the Peaceful Systems Alliance rose from her crystalline seat. Admiral Korvash, with respect, the historical records also show that humans have never initiated contact with other species. In every case we approached them. Perhaps the fault lies not with humanity but with our own assumptions about how to interact with them. A wave of disagreement swept through the chamber. The representative from the warrior clans of Vex stood and roared his response through his translation device. The approach does not matter. The result is always the same. These creatures do not simply defeat their enemies, they convert them. They are like a plague that spreads through civilizations, changing everything they touch. Elder Sarix of the ancient worlds spoke in her slow, measured tones. I have lived for 12,000 years and seen the rise and fall of countless species. Never have I encountered records of beings who could adapt and evolve as quickly as humans. Their very existence challenges the natural order of galactic development. The debate raged for hours. Some representatives argued for immediate military action, a preemptive strike to eliminate the human threat before it could spread beyond Earth. Others called for diplomatic contact, believing that peaceful negotiation might succeed where force had failed in the past. A few voices even suggested that humanity might be a positive addition to galactic civilization. But as the hours passed, fear began to dominate the discussion. Look at their entertainment, declared Ambassador Quintal of the Commercial Federation, projecting images from human media. Their stories are filled with themes of overcoming impossible odds, defeating superior enemies, and transforming weakness into strength. They don't just dream about survival, they celebrate it as the highest virtue. More disturbing evidence was presented. Human sports that simulated combat and survival scenarios. Educational systems that taught children to question authority and think independently. Cultural values that prized innovation and change over stability and tradition. They are chaos incarnate, announced High Priest Veltar of the Order of Eternal Harmony. Their very nature is antithetical to galactic peace. They thrive on conflict, change, and challenge. In a galaxy that has achieved stability through careful balance, they represent an unstoppable force of disruption. Dr. Kelthera found herself growing increasingly disturbed by the direction of the debate. She leaned over to Director Vexthon and whispered, "They're talking about genocide. They're seriously considering wiping out an entire species because they're afraid of what might happen." Vexthon's tentacles writhed with anxiety. "Kelthera, you must understand the pressure these representatives are under. Their constituents are terrified. Panic is spreading through the civilian populations faster than we can control it. Some colonies are already requesting evacuation to the galactic rim. But the humans have done nothing wrong, haven't they?" Vexthon pulled up a datapad showing recent intelligence reports. "Our monitoring stations have detected increased activity in the Sol system. Human spacecraft launches have tripled in the past month. Their communication arrays are sending more powerful signals into deep space. They're accelerating their space program." Kelthera studied the reports with growing alarm. "They're responding to our presence. Our monitoring ships must be detectable by their instruments. They know someone is watching them." "Which makes them even more dangerous," Vexithon replied. "A species preparing for contact with unknown aliens, accelerating their technological development, increasing their space presence. It looks exactly like preparation for expansion or war." At the central podium, Fleet Admiral Korvash was presenting his military analysis. Current intelligence indicates that humans will achieve faster than light travel within 20 to 30, Years. Once they leave their system, containment becomes impossible. We have perhaps one generation to act before they spread throughout the galaxy. The holographic display shifted to show projected expansion patterns. Red lines spread outward from Earth like blood vessels, showing potential human colonies spreading across nearby star systems within decades, reaching the galactic core within centuries. Furthermore, the Admiral continued, their population, growth and resource consumption patterns suggest they will need new worlds to colonize within 50 years. They will not remain confined to their system voluntarily. They will expand because they must expand. Representative Mulcath of the Hive Minds asked the question that was on everyone's mind. What are you proposing, Admiral? Admiral Corvash's response sent a chill through the assembly. Complete sterilization of the Sol system. A coordinated strike using quantum disruptors to eliminate all life on Earth and its colonies. Clean, quick, and permanent. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some representatives cheered the proposal. Others voiced strong objections. Arguments broke out in dozens of languages simultaneously. Elder Sarix managed to restore order by activating the chamber's harmony field, which dampened emotional responses and encouraged rational thought. Admiral Corvash, you are proposing the extinction of an entire species. This would be the largest act of genocide in galactic history. Yes, the Admiral replied without hesitation, and it may be necessary to save every other species in the galaxy. Dr. Kelthera could not remain silent any longer. Despite protocols forbidding observers from speaking, she stood and shouted, "You're all cowards." Security forces moved toward her immediately, but Elder Sarix raised a hand to stop them. Let her speak. She discovered this information. Her perspective may be valuable. All eyes in the massive chamber turned toward Kelthera. She felt the weight of countless civilizations, watching her, waiting for her words. You're afraid of humans because they're survivors, because they don't give up, because they find ways to turn disasters into advantages. But those same qualities could be the greatest gift this galaxy has ever received. She gestured toward the holographic display showing Earth. Look at their planet. It should have killed them 1,000,000 times over, but instead it made them stronger. Now look at our galaxy. We've achieved stability by avoiding challenges, by maintaining the status quo, by playing it safe. When was the last time any of our civilizations achieved a major breakthrough in science or technology? When was the last time we solved a problem that had been plaguing us for millennia? Murmurs of consideration rippled through the assembly. Kelthera pressed her advantage. Humans don't just survive challenges. They use challenges to evolve, to grow, to become better than they were before. Maybe that's exactly what this galaxy needs. Maybe we've become too comfortable, too safe, too afraid of change. Fleet Admiral Corvash interrupted her. Dr. Kelthera, your idealism is admirable but irrelevant. The historical record is clear. 43 civilizations have tried to coexist with humanity. 0 have succeeded unchanged. Because they tried to control humans instead of learning. From them, Kelthera shot back. What if instead of treating them as a threat, we treated them as teachers? What if we asked them to help us solve the problems we've been unable to solve ourselves? The chamber fell silent. For a moment, the possibility hung in the air like a fragile hope. Then Admiral Corvash crushed it with a single statement. Dr. Kelthera, the vote has already been decided. The sterilization fleet launches at dawn. The sterilization fleet never launched. As dawn broke over Council Station Alpha, emergency alarms began blaring throughout the massive structure. Kelthera woke in her quarters to the sound of running footsteps in the corridors and urgent announcements in dozens of languages. Something was happening, something that had caught the entire council off guard. She dressed quickly and made her way to the observation deck, where crowds of representatives and staff were gathering around the viewing windows. Outside, the space around the station was filled with ships, but these were not council vessels. They were human ships, hundreds of them, from small exploration craft to massive vessels that dwarfed anything in the council's fleet. They had appeared seemingly from nowhere, surrounding the station in perfect formation. But they made no aggressive moves. They simply waited. Admiral Zixandra appeared at Kelthera's side, her breathing apparatus cycling rapidly with stress. "How is this possible?" she whispered. "Our intelligence indicated they were decades away from faster-than-light travel." Through the viewing window, Kelthera could see the lead human vessel. It was beautiful in its simplicity, smooth curves and clean lines that spoke of advanced engineering combined with artistic sensibility. Along its hull, she could make out text in what looked like dozens of human languages, but prominently displayed. In letters large enough to read from a distance was a single word: "Welcome." Director Vexthan rushed up to them, a communication device in his hands. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies," he said breathlessly. "The same message in every known galactic language, plus several we don't recognize." He activated the device, and a warm human voice filled the observation deck. "Greetings, people of the stars. We are the representatives of Earth, which you have been observing for some time now. We come in peace, seeking friendship and understanding. We know you have questions about our nature and our intentions. We would be honored to answer them." The voice paused, and when it continued, there was a note of gentle humor that somehow made the massive fleet seem less intimidating. "We also know that some of you may be afraid of us. This is understandable. We have read your histories, learned about your encounters with our ancestors, and we understand your concerns. But we are not our ancestors, just as you are not yours. We would like the chance to prove that coexistence is not only possible but beneficial for all our species." Admiral Zixandra stared at the human fleet in disbelief. "They know about the historical contacts? How could they possibly—" Her question was answered when the human broadcast continued. "We have known about the galactic community for quite some time. The electromagnetic signatures of your observation ships, the quantum fluctuations of your faster-than-light drives, the pattern disruptions in cosmic background radiation caused by your communication networks. We have been studying you just as you have been studying us." Kelthera felt a chill run down her spine. The humans had been aware of galactic civilization and had said nothing. They had continued to develop their technology, explore their solar system, and advance their society, all while knowing they were being watched and evaluated. Furthermore, the broadcast continued, "We have recovered artifacts left behind by previous visitors to our world. Archaeological evidence, crashed vessels, abandoned technology, enough to piece together a fairly complete picture of our shared history. We know about the 43 civilizations that encountered our ancestors. We know what happened to them." The observation deck fell completely silent. Even the station's mechanical systems seemed to quiet as everyone strained to listen to the human words. "We want you to know that we understand your fear. Our ancestors were shaped by 4 billion years of struggle, and that shaping made them intense. They saw every challenge as something to be overcome, every problem as something to be solved, every relationship as something to be optimized. In many ways, they could not help but transform everything they touched." The voice took on a tone of profound sadness. "But transformation is not destruction. The civilizations that encountered our ancestors did not die. They evolved. They became something new, something that combined the best of what they were with the best of what humanity could offer. We have found their records, their art, their stories. They were not conquered, they were enriched." Images began broadcasting alongside the audio feed, ancient artworks that combined human and alien aesthetic styles, technology that showed clear fusion of different species approaches to engineering, cultural records that spoke of hybrid civilizations that had achieved wonders beyond what either species could accomplish alone. "These hybrid societies," the human voice explained, "chose to leave our galaxy not because they were fleeing in defeat, but because they had grown beyond the need for the constraints of this space. They went to explore new galaxies, to seed new civilizations, to continue the endless journey of growth and discovery that defines intelligent life." Admiral Zixandra grabbed Director Vexthan's arm. "Is this possible? Could the historical records have been misinterpreted?" Before he could answer, the human broadcast addressed their exact concern. "We know that the disappearance of these civilizations has been interpreted as evidence of human aggression. But consider this. In every case, the transformation took generations to complete. If humans were simply conquering and destroying, would the process have been so gradual? Would there have been time for art, culture, and voluntary participation? New images appeared showing archaeological evidence from Earth, sites where human and alien architecture had been built side by side, genetic evidence of voluntary interbreeding between species, cultural artifacts that spoke of celebration rather than conquest. Our ancestors did not force change upon others, the human voice continued. They offered it. They showed other species new ways of thinking, new approaches to problems, new perspectives on existence itself. Some chose to embrace these changes, some did not. But the choice was always theirs. Elder Syrinx materialized beside the group, her ancient face showing confusion and hope in equal measure. If this is true, she said slowly, then everything we believed about human nature was based on incomplete information, the human broadcast confirmed, as if responding directly to her words. We cannot blame you for your conclusions. Fear of the unknown is a survival trait that has served all our species well, but now we ask you to move beyond fear toward understanding. The lead human vessel began to move closer to the station, its hull gleaming in the light of nearby stars. As it approached, more details became visible. The ship's design was elegant but practical, advanced but not threatening. Most importantly, it was clearly built for exploration rather than war. We come to you now, because Earth is dying, the human voice said, and for the first time there was real sadness in the tone. Not from war or disaster, but from success. Our population and industry have grown to the point where our homeworld can no longer support us. We need new homes, new resources, new challenges to continue growing as a species. The implications hit Kelthera like a physical blow. Humanity was on the verge of spreading throughout the galaxy whether the Council wanted it or not. But instead of expanding in secret or taking worlds by force, they had come to ask permission. We could take what we need, the broadcast continued, confirming her thoughts. Our technology has advanced to the point where we could establish colonies on uninhabited worlds throughout the galaxy without your knowledge or consent. But we don't want to be invaders. We want to be neighbors. Admiral Zixandra's breathing apparatus was cycling so rapidly she was nearly hyperventilating. This is impossible. They're offering to negotiate instead of simply expanding. No species, with their power, would voluntarily limit themselves. Unless, Kelthera said quietly, their real strength isn't their technology or their adaptability. Unless their real strength is their ability to turn enemies into allies. The human broadcast was reaching its conclusion. We offer you a choice. You can try to contain us, fight us, or avoid us. History suggests these approaches will not succeed in the long term. Or you can join us. Not as subjects or servants, but as partners in the greatest adventure any of our species has ever undertaken. Images flashed showing possible futures. Human and alien crews working together on starships. Joint colonies where different species contributed their unique strengths to building new worlds. Research stations where the galaxy's greatest minds collaborated on solving cosmic mysteries. We call our proposal the Great Joining. Not the absorption of your civilizations into ours, but the creation of something entirely new. A galactic community based not on fear and separation, but on cooperation and mutual growth. The lead human ship had reached the station's docking bay. Through the viewing windows, Kelthera could see figures in environmental suits preparing to disembark. They moved with confidence but not arrogance, purpose but not aggression. We understand that this decision cannot be made quickly or easily, the broadcast concluded. We are prepared to wait while you consider our proposal. We ask only for the chance to meet with your representatives, to answer your questions, and to prove that humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy is not our ability to survive and adapt, but our desire to help others do the same.